Channel 12. This is Action News.
Today is the official 70th anniversary of 12 News, and for most of those years, the station was located at Central Avenue, just north of Roosevelt, before we moved into the heart of downtown Phoenix more than a decade ago.
Tram and I recently went back to our old building to see what's changed after 13 years.
All right, so we're here off Central and Portland, and Mark, can you believe it's been 13 years since we've been back at our old station?
I cannot believe it. You know, just pulling in this parking lot brings back such memories for me. In fact, right here, when I first came to 12 in 1980, Bill Denny, rest his soul, picked me up, and at the time he had a red and white Trans Am that said 12 Sports on it.
Wow!
And he parked right here.
Okay, well now it's changed. It's the Parsons Center for Health and Wellness. What do you say we go in?
Let's go inside. I want to see our old studio.
Yeah! This used to be Studio B.
Can you smell your cooking from the Valley Dish days?
The Valley Dish days, yes. This used to be our kitchen where we cooked.
Do you remember standing back here behind the...
Chopping the onions?
Yes.
With my onion goggles?
Yes.
You with me for a couple of the shows?
I know, we did some great shows. We cooked matzo ball soup together.
And what did you add to that soup?
Maybe a
little special something,
little vodka, which created a big stir in the station.
Alcohol was not allowed on the air.
This is the great one.
Wow. It's so different.
Remember having station meetings in here?
Yes, when corporate would come into town, and there were so many tables, and the whole station would gather in one room.
These windows were here, and you would overlook that brick wall. It's
yes. So now this is the Southwest Center, and Jessica Leach is the CEO. Tell us what happens here.
So many great things happen here. The Parsons Foundation created this space for LGBTQ agencies to come together, and the Southwest Center is really that anchor spot for queer healthcare. And we are so grateful for the history this building brings. I know it seems strange to think that being the news building would be such a positive impact, but all of the amazing stories that come from here fuel the Valley, right? And so to be part of that history has been fantastic.
I'm just glad that the station lived on in another form, in another life form to do good things.
That benefits the community.
Right. So if you listen closely enough, you can almost hear the police and fire scanners, because where we're standing right now is where the assignment desk was, which is where literally the assignments were handed out for all of the reporters and photographers.
That was like the central nervous system of the newsroom.
Yeah, and to show you how far back this goes, we would also hear not only the police and fire scanners, but also the typewriters, because when I first came here in 1980, we were all using typewriters.
So what you're looking at now is actually what's known as 1 in 10, their youth center. But what used to be here was our control room.
I remember sitting in here. It was tiered, like sort of like a movie theater.
Yeah, it was always just a flurry of activity. Okay, so now this is Studio A. Can you believe this?
It's so weird to walk in here and not see the lighting grid.
I know. And where the main set used to be, in the center, towards the back. This is where I got engaged, in the main studio. And it was a big secret. It was a big surprise.
Oh, I think everybody knew except you.
I'm hoping that you will say yes, taking my hand in marriage.
Oh, of course I would. I was shocked. In the middle of thinking that I was going to do a live interview.
And I was working here when I got engaged.
Yeah.
I didn't do it on the air, but I was working here.
Oh, that's so special.
Yeah.
So many great memories.
Yeah.
All right, so where we're sitting used to be the main set.
Basically, we're sitting where we used to sit.
Yeah.
And I remember the very last night, we were all filled with emotion. Knowing that we were excited about going to the new place, but very sad and nostalgic about leaving here. And it was the only time we ever drank alcohol on the set, but we had champagne and toasted a big thank you to this building for all of those great years.
Great memories.
Oh, you look the same, MC.
Yeah, yeah. You know, what's really interesting is, look, a building is a building, but it's the people
that inhabit that building, and seeing all of those faces that's what brings back the memories.
It did bring back lots of memories. My favorite memories when I was doing weather one night, that studio that you guys went into flooded during a monsoon.
I remember that.
And I'm doing weather. We're talking about
And
severe
we're, like,
weather.
squeeging the water out.
Yes, and it was literally on my feet.
It was
we eventually had to get out of the newsroom.
You know, one out of every 100-year rains.
Rains,
it just came down 3 or 4 inches in an hour.
Yeah, some great memories there, though.
Yeah, but hey, we're hopefully making memories here.
Here too, yeah, for sure. Yeah, we've been here for a long time.
I know, 13 years.
We are celebrating our 70th anniversary all this week, and tonight we're looking back at the history of 12 News and the people who made history.
One of them was a woman named Diane Kallis. Team 12's Tram Mai sat down with her to reflect on what it was like to become the first woman to make it on the air.
The year was 1970. 100,000 people demonstrated in Washington, D.C. against the Vietnam War. Richard Nixon was president. Jimi Hendrix and The Who were the biggest names in music. And back here in Phoenix, Diane Kallis made history as the first female reporter at 12 News.
I had already met the news director trying to get a job. And he said, well, let's do an audition. And I sat in the studio and watched the rerun of my audition. And he just turned to me and he said, when do you want to start? And I said, where do I put my purse?
Pretty unbelievable, considering Kallis was never in TV or graduated college. But since she was in high school, she knew she wanted to be a reporter. She was certainly at the right place at the right time when women were fighting for equal rights.
I did stories about abortion when Roe versus Wade was being battered about. There was a change going on, you know, in the country at that time.
And you were part of that change.
Yes, I was.
Yeah.
I was. There's Don Rickles when he still had hair.
And Kallis was also excited about interviewing the biggest legends in Hollywood at the time. Bob Hope, Sammy Davis Jr., Phyllis Diller, Don Rickles, and Liberace, who even signed his book for her.
To Diane, you're a marvelous lady. Love, Liberace.
With a picture of his piano.
And Kallis traveled everywhere.
I went to Guatemala one time to cover an earthquake. I got to interview Admiral John S. McCain, who is Senator McCain's father, who was Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific then.
She had the time of her life.
We had no tape in the beginning. We just had film, and the film was rushed in every afternoon after people shot it all day and had to be developed and cut and everything in time for the 6 o'clock news.
In a newsroom full of men.
And the men I worked with all treated me like their little sister. They were helpful and welcoming.
But in 1977, after 7 years working at Channel 12, she was let go.
I was given this when I left Channel 12, and it was given to me by the news crew, 9/30 of 77. And so it's a real treasure of mine.
Now, at 90, life is good for Diane.
This daily walk with rags, is that one of the things that just keeps you so young?
I think so, because I have to do that every day, and I really enjoy it. And she enjoys it.
Looking back, Kallis never thought of herself as a trailblazer. She was just living her dream. But she appreciates it now more than ever.
I am proud to have been part of that legacy, and I'm also proud that it happened at Channel 12, because to me, it's a very special place, and it was like they were my family.
Well, Kallis will be celebrating her 91st birthday coming up in just a few weeks on May the 22nd. So happy birthday. And of course, we want to thank her for being part of the 12 News family and paving the way.
Still very sharp. You know, she looks great. She's active. And And I love just sort of the two generations of reporters, Tram, having a chance to interview her.
I know, and I'm pretty sure she could talk to her forever. I would love to hear her thoughts on how she said she was part of the initial Roe v. Wade. I'd love to hear what she has
what
to
she thinks
say
about now.
Yeah.
All right.
Channel 12, this is Action News.
Well, all this week we are taking a look back at 70 years of history at 12 News. And there was one man who spent almost a third of that time with us. And even though you may not recognize his face, you've definitely heard his voice.
That's right. Team 12's Tram Mai introduces you to Charlie Van Dyke, whose deep, distinct voice has made its mark on 12 News.
Good evening. This is Channel 12 News Tonight.
12 News has changed over the years.
This is 12 News.
But one thing that stayed the same for decades
This is 12 News, 5 o'clock.
is this voice.
On Arizona's most watched station.
It is so great to meet the man behind the voice finally.
Well, thank you. Pleasure to meet you, too.
Meet Charlie Van Dyke.
Well, I started with Channel 12 back in '82, and I came out from Boston in February, very cold, wore my heaviest overcoat, took it off, and never put it back on.
Back then,
This is Channel 12 News. With Kent Dana, Patty Kirkpatrick, Bill Austin's weather, and Bill Denny with sports.
The thing that drew me to Channel 12 in the beginning was, even then, the station was so involved in the community. You know, going out, anchors and reporters going out to various events charity-wise. And Bill Austin would frequently do his weather cut from a nighttime charity event. And the station was just everywhere for the community.
some of Charlie's favorite promos were a spin-off from the Geico commercials.
With a lot of other stuff that helps me and my family every day.
Early evenings from 4:30 to 6:30 will never be the same.
By the time those ran, it was, go to the grocery store, go to the dry cleaner. They're going, aren't you that 12 News guy? Yeah. It was everywhere.
Something Charlie wasn't used to, considering he was always off camera. Charlie started in radio when he was just 14 and got his first big break in Dallas, Texas as a rock and roll DJ. Over the years,
These are some of the people I've met in Los Angeles. There's Ringo Starr.
Olivia Newton-John, Sonny Bono, Elton John, and Cher.
Hello again, and welcome to American Top 40. My name's Casey Kasem. And
He even filled in for legendary DJ Casey Kasem in the 80s. But it was in Dallas where Charlie got his start in TV.
The sales department of the radio station wanted to do a spec spot for a TV station. And so I did the spot. The sales guy took it over to the TV station, and the general manager, interesting fellow, said, well, I sure don't like your station, but that spot's pretty good. Would you like to do our announcements?
And Charlie eventually landed here.
Meet Bill Austin on 12 Action News, Monday.
In 2005, he got quite the honor.
That's from the Arizona Broadcasters Hall of Fame. That was fun.
There's also a part of 12 News' legacy that lives on with Charlie. He and Bill Austin became good friends. After Austin passed away in 2010 from cancer, Charlie and his wife created and donated to various charities in honor of Austin, including the Bill Austin Memorial Scholarship at ASU, and most recently, an ambulance that was given to the Arizona Humane Society.
Congratulations, 12 News, celebrating 70 years of award-winning journalism in the Valley.
These days, Charlie's still doing voiceovers for TV stations across the country, all out of the comforts of his own home.
What makes it so fun?
The people, and sometimes the writing. Some of the creative writing is fun to do.
When are you going to retire?
When it stops being fun, and that doesn't look like it's anytime soon.
Okay, first of all, you will not find a nicer guy than Charlie. At the height of his career, he was the voice for 71 TV stations and radio stations across the country. These days, it's about 25. He wanted to cut back his schedule a little bit, and he says that's a number that he's comfortable with.
I know. Why retire? He's got the best job.
He's got the best job and the best voice.
I know. And we miss his voice here. We're always talking about how we wish he could do some of our promos again.
Charlie, congratulations.
Yeah. Welcome back. This week we are celebrating 70 years of 12 News, looking back at our history and also honoring some of the people who made 12 News what it is today.
We've had special guests joining us all week long at 6 o'clock. Tonight we are joined by two women who spent years reporting on some of Arizona's biggest stories. We are so happy to have Mary Kim Titla and Kim Covington back with us in studio tonight. And you know, we were talking in the break, and I felt this when I saw Lynn Sue, and we saw Mark Lewis and Coop yesterday, and all of the other guests that we've had. The bonds that you make in this business really don't break. You can go years without seeing someone, and then see him, and it's like you saw him yesterday.
Oh, I feel like I'm home.
Yeah.
You guys are family.
Absolutely.
And, you know, family, you know, always stays together, so we may not see each other every day, but, you know, I'm like,
I
there
know.
you are.
We all
Yes.
spent so much time together on a day in, day out
Yes.
basis, you know. I mean, we were with a photographer or we're here, but we were with each other so much, and we, you know, those bonds just developed.
Doesn't break.
And
Yeah,
it's
and
tough to break.
They are. Have you guys enjoyed taking a look back this week? I don't know if you've caught
It's
the
been-
coverage, but
it's
when we
been
went to
fun.
the old building,
Oh my goodness, I remember that building on Central.
You and I
yeah,
started in
yeah.
2005
1101.
together. Yeah, Kim was at the anchor desk while I was
Yes.
doing weather. What were some of your favorite memories from doing that weekend show together?
Oh my goodness, I loved working with you on the weekend show. We were we interacted with the viewers a lot,
Yes.
and we did we were
on silly. We had
yeah,
so
we were
much
really
fun.
Silly. I remember, you know, playing with your chair when you were doing the
The
weather,
weather.
and then the chair rose up to
Above the desk.
Oh my goodness. And it was like, that was hilarious. So we had to go to a break, but like fun things like that.
We
just-
never took ourselves too seriously. Yeah, and Mary Kim, when I got here, you were on your way out when I got here at 12 News, but you were the first Native American reporter in the state of Arizona.
You know, there's something about being a trailblazer, right? And I'm really proud of the fact that there were others that followed me, like the late Andy Harvey and Charlie Ed City, and there will be more because I'm doing communications camps now with Native American youth in the nonprofit work that I do. But it was a fun time when I started in the early 90s, and one of my first assignments was covering the Phoenix Suns when they went to the playoffs. And I remember going onto the tarmac at the Sky Harbor Airport.
Sure.
And, you know, all the players start walking off, and it was really my first time being exposed to, you know, these all-star athletes. And I remember walking up to KJ, and I just froze. There was nothing that came out of my mouth. Somebody else came along, a reporter, and said, "So how do you feel about the game tonight?" And I was like, duh, I could have said that, but it was so exciting. It was fun. I enjoyed myself immensely while I was here. 13 years.
You were such a mainstay at 12, and you became a rock star for your tribe. And I'm not exaggerating at all. And I'm wondering how much that platform you had at 12 helped you with your platform now with Unity.
It's helped immensely. And you know, people still approach me today and think I'm still on the air. Right. I left in 2005, but I can't thank, you know, my boss and my colleagues and everyone that I worked with enough for helping me grow, because that's really, you know, you all played a role in that. But it's helped me in so many ways. And the work that I do now with Native American youth, you know, they need to see people who look like them in the news, in every industry. And so I was happy to help play that role.
And Kim, the same can be said for you as well.
Oh, I had a great time and got so connected to the community through School Solutions.
Yes.
That's what I love the most. Understanding what were the solutions in education. And so I was out in the community getting connected, and that's the same kind of work that I do now at the Arizona Community Foundation, which is the largest grant maker, largest private provider of scholarships. There shouldn't be a nonprofit that we don't support, like Unity. So I got a chance to work with Kim. I get a chance to work with Lynn Sue Flood.
Right.
Yes.
What I love is that neither one of you have completely stepped away from broadcasting. No. You still do it even in your jobs today, right? You're doing voiceover work. Yes. You're also working, you know, in television with youth.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun. I just, you know, once you get it into your system, you never stop telling stories. So I am a forever storyteller.
Yes.
So whether that's going to be with the Arizona Community Foundation or my side hustle where I do commercials and voiceovers, but I love telling people stories, and that's what I miss most about this platform, because this platform allows that story to really amplify across the state.
I have to tell you a quick story about when I first started in Unity, because I was involved in the youth programs when I was growing up as a teenager, and my nickname was Microphone Mary.
Oh.
And I made a career out of it. Isn't that funny? Hilarious. Because I liked holding that mic.
Speaking of nicknames, I used to call you Waterworks.
I
have never seen another news anchor cry more. And
I think it was one of your most endearing qualities, is that you were yourself on the air. And I remember the night that Barack Obama was inaugurated and made his, he had won the election.
Yes.
Made his speech at Grant Park, and I asked you, as a person of color, what this meant to you, and tears were streaming down your.
I could not get through that. Could not get through that.
But it was such a real moment, and I think that's what was so special about both of you, is that you were yourselves on the air, and I think that's what viewers love, is they want to know the person.
Yes, and we laughed a lot, we cried a
we
lot
did.
over the Yarnell fire.
Yes.
I remember being on set, it felt like for 15 hours straight.
Yep.
Remember that Sunday night?
Just such a tragedy.
When the 19 hot shots were killed. So those types of stories you never forget.
There were a lot of people that, when you meet them, you're not sure how they're going to impact your lives, but every day in and day out, we met so many amazing people, and I covered many of those same type of stories. And one of the things that I think I was able to do was cover a lot of stories about Native Americans, and I'm so happy that 12 News supported me in that and made sure that we were diverse in our coverage of the news, and we went into Native American communities and made sure that we were telling their stories. And some of it was controversial, but a lot of times we just needed to just tell their own
it was
personal
important.
stories.
We wanted to be seen.
Really important.
We wanted to be seen, and I'm so glad that we both improved equity in the work that we did.
You did, and you changed a lot of lives, both of you. It is so special. That's been the best part of this week for me.
It's been great.
Is just seeing all of these people who we know and love.
And all these great memories that we have with you guys.
Understanding that the bonds aren't broken.
Not broken, and our kids growing up
Yeah.
on television.
No,
He's pregnant on the set for felt like 2 years.
Well, Kim and Mary Kim, so good to see both of you. Continued success to both of you in what you do.
Happy 70th
Thank you.
Helping our
happy
community.
70th. Yeah, and now I'm a grandmother.
To you all too.
you're
And I'm a
kidding.
grandfather.
He's a grandfather.
Yes.
That's right.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you both.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you so
us.
much.
This week we are celebrating 70 years of 12 News, and we are kicking things off with the man who was the face of 12 News for so many years.
Ken Dana was a mainstay here for almost 3 decades, right here in this anchor chair. Here's his son Joe on his dad's legacy 1 year since his passing.
Saying goodbye to a loved one is easier when you vow to carry on their best traits.
My dad was known for making homemade cards.
For our family, after we sent off my dad, Kent Dana, into the sunset last year, we vowed to laugh often. Help others.
You're strong.
And follow a motto my dad learned from his dad, my grandfather Joe.
Something my dad told me, take your work seriously, just don't take yourself seriously. Like plain old mud.
My father hit the 12 News airwaves in 1979.
Good evening, I'm Kent Dana.
Good evening.
His proudest projects involved reporting on the foster care system and connecting the community to police with silent witness. What I will cherish,
welcome back my father Kent,
when he came out of retirement for a series of reports we did together. A boy who at 5 won the Mr. Little Arizona pageant and at 75 was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Emmy, my dad always got a kick out of being in the spotlight and shining it on others.
To the younger generation of the broadcast community, I want to say this. We all know that TV newsrooms are changing. Some things never change. The ability to know what a good story is and to tell a good story.
God, we all still miss him.
No.
We do. And his spirit, I think, as corny as that might sound, still lives on.
Yeah, it's true.
As part of the legacy, and we think about that as we celebrate 70 years. We have two special guests with us tonight. One you know very well, our colleague Joe Dana, and joining him tonight is his sister, Carrie Gibney, two of Kent's 6 children. So welcome, Carrie. So good to see you.
It's good to be here.
Joe, it's hard to believe.
Here to give me support.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your family, not only your dad, but your grandfather, so intricately linked with broadcasting and 12 News for over half of the 70 years that Channel 12 is celebrating. He truly believed, and this is one of the things that I so admired about him, in the importance of local news. How much of that was he able to instill in you as a young man?
He used to say, there will always be a need to know what's happening in your own backyard, no matter what changes around us. And I think he also was bothered by this narrative we've seen in many years recently, that you can't trust your local journalists. And, you know, we are part of the community. You know, I tell people the same formula he used and even my grandfather used is the same. We are out trying to get the story as close to the truth as possible. It's not perfect, right? But you get both sides. And we are the community. We're here telling stories of those around us. You saw Bram asking the governor those hard questions about immigration. It's those kinds of things that my dad appreciated and that I think he would really push back on when a lot of times these days you have opportunists and you have pundits who say you can't trust your local reporters.
By the way, I just want to point out the video that you all are looking at now. 3 generations of Danas there. And that young, good-looking guy on the left, I think, is you.
He looked like he was 9.
Yeah.
He was.
You are a 9-year-old with the same voice that you have right now. It's so weird. Carrie, we all know Kent Dana, the anchor man, right? But what was he like as a father and then also as a grandfather to your kids?
Man, he was happy. He was funny. He was hilarious. And he was incredibly patient, almost to a fault. You know, he started babysitting my kids when I started having kids, and we got, you know, I'd come home and the house would be a mess and the toys are everywhere, but you know, he can't say no to those kids, and they let him, you know, he let them do whatever they want.
Not only would he let them make a mess, but then what would he do? He would
pay them to clean up the mess.
So the kids learned to make a mess because they knew Grandpa.
Dad, yep.
And I'm guessing it's the same thing with your kids.
Yeah, I mean, he was a spoiler.
You know, and that's what grandfathers are for, though. You know, I got here in 2005, so Kent had just moved on from Channel 12, so I did not get the pleasure of working with him. But really, you wouldn't know it. When I got here, I was new. I was reporting out in the field doing weather. People would come up to me, find out I worked with 12 News, and they were like, that's Kent Dana's station.
Yeah.
That's Kent Dana's station. And then they would follow that up with, I remember when he came to my school, when he came to cover a story, when he did Wednesday's Child, when he was, you know, covering some public event or emceeing something. And so you could tell that he endeared himself to the community. And people just respected him so much. And I didn't have to work with him, but I got the essence of his spirit.
And the thing that I got from him early on was, and back in those days when I first came here, I was doing sports, but he constantly would pull me to the side and say, don't try to be like anybody else. Because that was the early days of ESPN Sports Center. And as a young guy, a young broadcaster, you're desperately trying to make your mark. And what he said really resonated with me, and I know he gave this message to any young person.
And I was fortunate because for me, growing up in this business, it opened a lot of doors because people felt like they knew him.
Yes.
And growing up in this business too, it's interesting because you see topics that he covered kind of pass through. We have some video of a 12 News town hall he did on the drought and environment. This was in 1992, and it's interesting because when you watch that, someone there literally said, our children and grandchildren are going to have a moment, and he tells this to my dad, when they may not be guaranteed water on their farms and possibly in cities. And now here I am covering these really serious issues, you know, and you see through lines of what he covered, and the stories continue.
What's old is new again.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing that I think we all know is synonymous with Kent, aside from his broadcast pedigree, is the jacket.
Oh, yeah.
The jacket.
The iconic.
So when you used to see your dad wear that on Christmas, which Joe now carries on that tradition, Were you embarrassed or did you love it?
I think as a kid it was a little cringy. Now I appreciate how iconic it is. But I do remember him telling a story that he got a call from a viewer one time. She was complaining that it gave her morning sickness during her pregnancy.
Oh no!
I don't think it was a favorite amongst the fans.
Yeah, and he bought the jacket to be serious, to actually wear.
Yeah.
In 1977, he got it from Sears, and he
was
told wear a bright coat.
Yeah.
Because it's TV. And then over the years, of course, it became like this joke. But at the same time, something my dad appreciated was tradition.
Yeah.
Find ways to mark time, find ways to celebrate together, whether it's a Christmas jacket or anything else.
And to not take yourself too seriously, which
for sure.
And to never dry clean it, right?
Well, yeah, I don't think you can. I don't think there's
Well, Joe, I have to say you wear it very well.
You do. You definitely do.
Carrie, thanks so much for coming in the studio and talking with us.
I'm really happy to be here.
Joe, I mean, you have to be here anyway, but thank you for coming in the studio.
This week we're celebrating 70 years of 12 News. In fact, on this day in 1953, Channel 12 went on the air for the very first time.
And throughout the week, we are welcoming some of the mainstays who made the station what it is today. And tonight we have a very special guest, our friend and former 12 News anchor, Lynn Sue Flood. You're Mark's former co-anchor, my predecessor. So this is kind of like a reunion right now.
Oh my God, happy birthday.
So good to see
Yes,
you.
thank you. I don't feel a day over 70.
So, Lynn Sue, what were some of your fondest memories of working here at 12 News all those years?
Aside from working with us.
Well, yeah, I knew you'd have to say that. Well, but that's actually true. I do miss the people. The hours are tough.
Yeah.
The stories can be heartbreaking. So, I'm not so much missing that, but I do miss the people and the camaraderie. I have a lot of that now where I work now, but there's nothing like a big story that brings the whole newsroom together and you get it on the air by the seat of your pants and it's amazing and you've informed your whole community. Those are the really fun days where the adrenaline just...
I was going to ask you went to work for hospice and have done a phenomenal job with them, but do you ever miss that adrenaline rush that you get when there's breaking news?
Oh, so yes, but I'm the kind of person that makes my own adrenaline. So there's plenty of it where I am now. I love to tell stories, Mark, you know that. So I tell lots of beautiful stories still.
And there's some stories that probably never leave you. What are some of the stories that really just impacted you the most?
Well, we were kind of reminiscing about Granite Mountain hotshots. 9/11 was devastating to our whole nation. I think we were all doing our jobs with tears in our eyes and lumps in our throats. Gabby Gifford, there were just so many. But then there were also wonderful stories of everyday heroes who did beautiful things. Most people are good and there is good news. And I always love telling those stories and giving people hope.
I think that's the thing about this business that a lot of people don't understand is, we all have coworkers that we like and coworkers that we don't like. But in this particular business, I think the bonds are tighter because of what you go through on a daily basis. You need someone to unload on when you've told the story of 9/11 6 times over the course of a day, or you have seen the tears in the eyes of the people of Yarnell, and then you're only human and you have to decompress to someone, and usually it's your coworker.
Because they've been through it with you every step of the way.
Right.
Mark,
and you're having to process it, while
Yes.
delivering it to viewers in a way that, they can understand.
Well, you did that for me as a co-anchor all the time.
And
I think
you for me.
Strengthened, right? And it was so fun because we had that kind of rapport where, and I know you saw it, like I would know his punchline or he would take a breath in and I knew he was going to talk, so I would stop. We kind of knew each other's breaths.
Rhythm.
Yeah. Well, there is one person who we thought would be here tonight, but she couldn't because of an emergency situation where she lives. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Her pets.
But Janine Ford was supposed to be here, but she did want to check in via a special message. Take a look.
happy 70th anniversary 12 News. So excited. And just want to tell you that I'm still at it up here in the White Mountains, doing a couple of radio shows. I have a morning radio show, Magic 1017, and then I have a news talk show on iTalk, and it's called Voice of the Mountain. So I am loving every minute of it. Of course, I've never been able to stop talking, so you know me, that hasn't changed. But as far as the 70th anniversary of 12 News, oh my goodness, the memories. And thinking back, I would think that my favorite memories are where we could do stories where we really made a difference. And living up here in the White Mountains now, I always remember like covering the Rodeo Chetasky Fire and how that coverage was so incredible, letting people know what was going on and telling all of the great stories from up here in the White Mountains and rural Arizona. And you know that's always been near and dear to my heart. So I love the stories where we made a difference with 12 News. And then secondly, the thing I always think about looking back is I think about all the beautiful memories with my coworkers and how the laughter. I think about all the fun times. Kent, Lynn Sue, and then Bill Denny inevitably would say something that would just knock Kent off his chair, and we couldn't stop laughing. They'd always try to make me read on, and I'd snort or something. It was embarrassing. But Bill Austin, Sean McLaughlin, all the, and more importantly, all the incredible producers, directors, and people we had behind the scenes helping us out and making it a great show. So it's really a legacy, and 12 News just stands strong, and I'm really, really proud of all the work that you guys have been doing and how good you're at it still, okay? So happy 70th. And if you guys ever get up to the White Mountains, come and see me again, or you can hear me on iTalk 1067 FM, the Voice of the Mountain FM, and I've got a magic morning show, go figure. Okay, so come up, be on my radio show, or come up and say hi. Love you all. Happy anniversary, 12 News.
Did you notice how many times she plugged her radio show?
We did, yes.
I think it was 7.
I love that she's still in the business, though, you know?
She understands the news.
She does. Lynn Sue, you've always been really good about sharing personal moments with the viewers while you were here. I remember when I first got here, I didn't, know you. I was a weekend weather person, and you were the big news anchor. And you invited me to Wynn's adoption party. Yeah, when you adopted Wynn. And I remember that was one of the first moments that you and I had a personal connection.
We bonded.
Work. We bonded, but you shared that with viewers and that whole journey in his adoption.
It was a beautiful story, and it showed there are so many beautiful ways to build a family. And we've had, over the years, many people tell us that they went to China and adopted a little girl, usually, because they were inspired by the fact that you could, expand your family. And gosh, he is everything you'd ever want in a son. The two of them are so cute together. They're finishing finals this week. They'll be home this weekend for the summer.
I can't believe so much time has gone by. I mean, he was 4 when I went to that party.
3.
Oh, he was 3. How old is he now?
He's gonna be 21.
Oh my God.
We're not that old. I don't know how that happened. Did you see those pictures that we were running when Jean was talking? We were babies.
I was gonna ask you.
You guys look exactly the same.
No,
both of you look exactly the same.
When you look back on that, to me, it was a simpler time. And it was easier to do this job. Do you think you'd enjoy doing TV news now with some of the toxicity that's out there and the social media and things like that?
So social media really changed things. The hardest thing for me, and I don't think I'd be able to do it now, is that it isn't so neutral. It isn't neutral. It isn't who, what, where, why, when. There's a little bit of opinion and bias put in, and that would be hard for me now. But you guys are doing a great job. You're carrying out the tradition. I saw a story the other night where you threw Mark under the bus. He laughed his head off. Do you remember this? You were the whack-a-mole that she was hitting in the story?
Listen, this is a nightly occurrence. It's not one time. It was not a one-off.
She's carrying on the tradition because somebody needs to keep that ego in check.
I was going to think, how could you leave me with this, Lynn Sue? How could you do this to me?
You're doing a great job.
I thought you liked me.
Why don't you just move here and I'll go with Tom and we'll go have a couple beers.
Just step right over.
It's so good to see you.
Oh my gosh, you
so
two
great to have you here.
are wonderful. You're still always my news fam.
Yes.
And I love
Likewise.
you both. Love you both.
Well, happy
We love
anniversary.
you too.
Yes, happy anniversary.
Yes. All right. Welcome back. This week we are celebrating 70 years of 12 News, but we also have had 12 Sports, which has a tremendous legacy, thanks to two of our guests here tonight, along with Cam Cox. We're joined by, should we call them sports legends?
Yeah, sports, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Legends in this building.
Bruce Cooper and Mark Lewis back here with us in studio. Guys, it's so good to have you back.
Great to be here.
Absolutely. I miss you. I miss you guys. I miss everybody.
You can come hang out anytime.
Yeah, you know, both of you guys are always welcome. I don't think we can talk about 12 Sports without starting with Bill Denny, who really was the person, he was the standard bearer, don't you think, for 12 Sports and the brand that it became?
Yeah, he was iconic. I mean, he represented the marketplace. If you grew up here in Phoenix, Bill Denny was your sports guy. And I was telling somebody when you left, and I got to thank you for leaving because that's how I came here. That's another story for another day. But this car right here was one of 93 Bill had in 15 years I worked at Channel 12. He bought your Beamer and he used the
cassette deck as an ashtray. But, you know, I don't know about you guys, but Bill promised me when he picked me up for my job interview in the Macho TA, he said, Mark, you can drive it anytime you want. I never got to drive that car.
We probably only had it 3 weeks.
Dude, you started here as an intern, right?
I did. I was an intern for Mark Curtis, who was in sports at the time, Steve Pacenti,
Look at that photo.
And Bill Denny. And I tell you what, you talk about someone who had great mentorship. I mean, Mark talked about Bill Denny. We're talking about legends. I mean, one thing that they taught me early on, credibility.
Sure.
They told me, check your ego at the door. This is about credibility. And you will see and you'll learn as you work here and grow what we mean.
Mark, what do you most remember about Steve Pacente? Passed away in the 90s, you know, going to a Cardinals-Redskins game, and the team dedicated the game ball to him afterwards.
Yeah,
about Steve?
I remember so many things, but one thing that stands out is he was a family guy, first and foremost. Julie and his kids were his life. In fact, he took a sabbatical right before he passed, which happened to be fortuitous in light of what happened, to be able to spend extensive time with the family. And I'll never forget that Saturday. Coop was working. October 15th, 1994, when we lost Steve. And it was tragic, but he was a remarkable talent and a great guy to be around.
Yeah, and to follow that up, I was the guy that always traveled for the Cardinal games. Steve Pacente asked, he said, Coop, do you mind if I go to D.C.? He says, my children's godfather works out there. I want to go hang out with them a little bit. I said, no problem, Steve. And if you can imagine the shock and horror that came down when I learned that Steve Pacente was killed in an auto accident when leaving his godfather's home to go join the team at a practice. It was such a devastating time. I mean, but my goodness, I was just thinking, man, if I just would have did that trip myself, Steve, as always, Steve wouldn't have been there.
I think, and I'm wondering what you guys think about this, that the thing that made Bill and Steve so entrenched in the Valley sports scene is that they were very approachable as sports people. They were fans. They obviously were objective, but they were also fans, and that came through in their broadcast. What do you guys think was the special ingredient that made them so endearing?
Well, Steve was just such a nice guy. I mean, but Bill Denny, on the other hand, I mean, when you go out to a ball game with him anywhere, I mean, everyone knew him and he had time for everyone. Bill, I mean, it was, come on, Bill, we gotta go. He talks with everyone.
You were the same way.
All
right,
I told you, I learned from the best.
Guys, when you think about moments and you think about how this valley has changed, Mark, what comes to mind when you think of moments, favorite moments?
Well, like I told Mark, when he left in '87, I came here. The Cardinals came here in '88. We're in the NBA Finals in '93. He had to follow Chuck around. And then I'm in the locker room when Jerry gets ice tray of ice water poured over his head by Colburn, Stottlemyre, and Jay Bell. So thank you very much, Mark, for leaving for that little brief time so I could come in, and a lot of great moments that we were able to witness.
Well, you know, for me, there are two moments that stand out. You know, as you guys know, and the word antidote, it doesn't exist in my vocabulary, but there are two that stand out. The Cardinals in 1998, Mark just talked about how they got here in '88. 1998, they are having their first winning season, and if they beat the San Diego Chargers, they will go to the playoffs for the first time. Chris Jackie split the uprights, 16-13 Cardinals. Hey, the fans stormed the field. That doesn't happen in the NFL. Granted, the Cardinals were at a college stadium, but As you see, the fans tore down the stadium, they tore up the turf, and I remember looking over to my left and seeing Tommy Bennett, Cardinal safety. He's just sitting on the fence with his arms crossed. I went up, and there's Tommy right there, 28. I said, Tommy, dude, what are you doing here? He says, hey, sit with me. He said, isn't this great? Isn't this great? Let's soak it up. And we did. So that stands out to me.
They took the goalposts down.
They went down. They went everywhere. It was a sea of humanity. And then in '93, my job, we had the Charles Barkley show, Suns Jam Session with Charles Barkley. This never happens either. You don't see a losing team have a parade. But the Suns would run up and they had this parade. And right there, Charles Barkley. My job was to follow Charles in his convertible. And let me tell you something. I'll tell you, that convertible, when it was time for him to roll, it probably moved 2 inches before the crowd just converged on him. Security, police came in. So here's me and my photographer, John Torgoy. We're running with the security and Charles all the way back to America West Arena, where we had to wait atop the balcony for the parade route to finish, right there. I mean, it was such a goosebump moment. I mean,
300,000 people for a loss.
Yeah.
Imagine if we ever win the NBA.
One of your favorite was the World Series, right?
World Series. I come running onto the field after Game 7. I think we were all down there in different places, and I just remember coming out of the tunnel before we went on the air, and my son was there with my father-in-law, his grandfather. And I'm looking up in the stands to try to catch his eye, just because I couldn't sit with them because I was working, but I wanted to make eye contact with him. And just the journey that this young team had been on was just so incredible. And the Valley had its first championship. Oh, by the way, the Valley had its first championship. But when I look at you, Mark, and I look at you, Coop, the one thing that I remember that always sticks out, Coop, we're in Dallas for a Cardinals playoff game, and it's freezing there.
I know where this is going.
So Coop's got this trench coat with the collar.
It was cold.
Collar pulled up, and we're outside. And Mark goes, let's go to Mark Curtis and Count Chocula.
He sure did. He sure did. Mark would call me out for anything. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Well, they beat the Cowboys.
They beat the Cowboys.
They did.
Lost in Minnesota.
Vince Tobin, right?
Yeah.
Another favorite moment of mine, toward the end of Coop's career, is when Larry Fitzgerald rolled him down the 10th tee box.
He loved tripping people, and he got behind Coop. And
he gave us the yoke. We were standing there, and he goes, "Hey, look, what is that, Cam and Coop?" We look. He tackles Coop and then throws him down the 10th tee box.
I mean, my goodness.
All right, so we talked about the one championship in one of the major sports that the Valley has. Who will own the next championship? Will it be the Suns, the Cardinals, the D-backs?
Sounds like we're going back in
or the Coyotes.
Come on, give me a bold prediction.
It'll definitely be the Suns. I mean, we have 3 years to get it right with Durant and Booker if it doesn't happen this year. Hey, look, I'm not giving up. They're down 0-2, but hey, I'm not giving up. But hey, I believe it'll be the Phoenix Suns.
Did he just give him the
Coop has never won a bet.
His predictions are never right, Mark. Yeah.
He's been in Sports Illustrated predictions.
He's 0 for his lifetime.
If you jinx the Suns.
What do you think, Mark?
I kind of like this young Diamondbacks team. I think they're doing it the right way. They're building it. They're menacing. They're fast. I think that they can, mature into a contender if they can just find some more money that the Dodgers spend. The Dodgers have so much money.
Hey, I got to add one quick thing. As Mark's weekend producer, when Mark Robbins left, I took Mark Robbins' roll-ins with Mark's weekend producer. So Mark would have
Coop, as usual, is running us.
Mark would have these segments. Plays of the week, Hall of Shame, Ask the Doc, and here's my favorite. Fishing with Hervé. Remember Fishing with Hervé?
I do remember Fishing with Hervé.
Hervé Villachet.
It was extremely popular for about a week. Guys, thank you both.
Thanks.
Always a pleasure to have you.
Oh, my God.
Check this out, right? Y'all got to sign this before we leave.
Time to get on the bus?
Yeah, time to get on the bus.
Maybe Cam will have us on Sports Tonight.
Come back anytime you want, guys. It's such an honor to carry on what you guys have started here. And we just want to thank you guys for everything.
Thanks for having
me.
Good to see you. Come on. All right. Well, this week we've been taking a look back at some of the stories and faces that shaped our station as we celebrate 70 years.
And tonight, Team 12's Jonathan McCall talks to two former anchors, learning how one moment they shared together on air helped pave the way for so many others.
This is Action News.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Stan Stovall. You could call Stan Stovall an icon or even a legend.
And as one person said, he's the reason the position is called anchor.
And those are not words that I use lightly to describe myself, because I always tell people, I'm just another tax-paying citizen like everybody else.
But the truth is, he's not like everyone else, paying a hefty price to pave a path that he often walked alone for a number of years.
And believe me, I took my share of, how shall I say, people who it was difficult for them to accept a black face on TV.
A TV titan in his own right, Stovall recently wrapped up a nearly 52-year career in broadcasting that took him from the jungles of Burma to the charm of Baltimore. But the pages of his story started right here in the Valley, where he grew up. But get this, TV wasn't even on his radar.
You never saw African Americans on TV. For that matter, very rarely, you never saw women, you never saw Hispanics, you never saw Asians. It was a segregated industry limited to just white males.
But that all changed with the passing of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Stations forced to make their newsrooms reflect the communities they served. For Stovall, it was an unexpected opportunity. In 1970, at the age of 17, while attending Carl Hayden High, another Phoenix station would make him the first black TV reporter in Arizona history. A year later, he would become the first black anchor in the state and the youngest in all of America.
That was very important to me to be a positive role model and a good representative for people breaking that glass ceiling, because for so many years prior to that, we just weren't given the opportunity.
But being the first came with its challenges, including racism in and out of the newsroom.
And this is in the day before the internet and cell phones or whatever, so they would literally write you hate letters. Write the station hate letters. What is this N doing on the air? And
in 1974, he found his way to Channel 12 after a pay dispute at his former station, where he says his white counterparts made more but did less.
2 days after that, Channel 12 called me and offered me a job as a weekend anchor and a reporter, paying me 3 times what I was making at Channel 3 at the time.
The move would put him in good company.
That I am the first black full-time sportscaster in the history of Arizona television.
Ron Brooks joined 12 News back in 1971, working first behind the scenes as a film editor, but quickly rising through the ranks as a news reporter and then as the weekend sports anchor.
As weekend sports anchor, could not get back in time to anchor the sports on the weekend news. So they pulled me out of the film editing room, put a shirt and a tie and a coat on me, and somebody helped me write a script. And I got in front of the camera and did it live, and I stayed on ever since.
The duo would make unexpected history right here on Channel 12.
I'm soloing the weekend, and we get into a commercial break, and as we're in the commercial break about to come out to sports, we come out on the monitor is right in front of us, and Ron and I are both looking at the monitor, and we were just absolutely mesmerized because we had never seen 2 African Americans on a news set together at the same time ever.
And we both just sat there and stared at the screen in the studio, and I said, yes, it sure is. Well, what's happening in sports? I went on and did the sportscast. So it only happened once or twice, so it wasn't a regular thing. But it's never happened again. That's what makes it unique.
A moment they both shared together, triggering a bond that's lasted decades.
And we've developed a real bond. And it's good to know that there's somebody else who walked the same walk that I walked and went through the same trials. I mean, it wasn't easy getting on the air.
This legendary duo now hoping to have their stories cemented in the history of Arizona broadcasting, and that future generations can understand the path they paved.
That doesn't allow me to go to Baltimore. That doesn't allow me to walk into this station and to, assume the role that he had some 40 years ago as the weekend anchor. That's not possible without him or without you. So, and I personally want to thank you.
You can tell how proud they are to be part of this history.
I'll say this, talking with Stan, it really was surreal knowing the fact that
40 years ago, he did sit in that same seat on the weekends. And for me to occupy it now and to just talk with him about growing up here and what his legacy has been over the years in Baltimore, it really was just an incredible interview that I definitely won't forget anytime soon.
And it's interesting because you guys have followed each other around the country.
Yeah, I worked in Baltimore at a
Right.
competing station, so I watched Stan, remember watching him across, as a competitor, but just thinking how awe I was in that voice. He just had such an incredible voice and was always community oriented and basically the dean of Baltimore News when he left. So it was great to be able to connect with him and have that history here in Arizona and learning about him as well.
And very cool that they named the studio at WBAL
That
in
is
Baltimore
very true.
after him.
Yeah, he is definitely on the Mount Rushmore of news anchors there in Charm City.
Now, what are they up to today? Are they both retired?
So everyone's retired.
Okay.
Ron's up in Prescott, probably watching right now.
I hope
We would hope
He's
so.
watching right now. Stan's in Baltimore, but he still comes back to Phoenix often. He still has a number of family members here who still live here in Phoenix. So he still comes here to visit, and he watches us when he does.
Yeah.
Two fine gentlemen.
Yeah, they really
It's
are.
great to hear
incredible.
from them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great
Right.
story. Really good story. Welcome back. This week we are celebrating 70 years of 12 News. It's hard to believe. And we've been looking back all week at our history and honoring some of the great people who made 12 News what it is today.
Yeah, we've had some really special guests in all week, and we have some more special guests joining us at 6 o'clock tonight.
Tonight we're joined by Lou Ruggiero and Rich Robertson, and it is, honestly, it's such a pleasure to have both of you guys in here. Let me just say off the top that both of you guys were really inspirational for me as a reporter because you both did it the right way. Thorough, fair, from A to Z, 100%. And you've both transitioned into what seems to be, basically in our conversation before we came on the air, a pretty natural progression, which is private investigators.
It is, yeah. We do all kinds of investigations now, and it's the same kind of work. We're using the same skills that we always had as journalists. We gather facts and we tell stories.
And I'll ask each of you, during your time here at 12 News working as investigators, what were some of the stories that stood out to you the most?
Well, obviously there were the very large stories like the Phelps Dodge copper strike in '83, the Meekum impeachment in the mid-'80s, As scam at the legislature, the Symington fraud trial, the Amtrak Sunset Limited, all of those, the Oklahoma City bombing and the Tide of Kingman, all of those stand out. But I want to correct one thing Rich said. I mean, yes, I'm an investigator, but always Rich was the I team. I was general assignment. I was the B team.
Oh, no, come on.
I was the guy who went out there every day. Rich had.
But with the same
lose
goal.
the vacuum. Well, yes,
With the same
but see,
goal.
after you do this long enough, you start to learn from people like Rich, and you start to you see things, and you go, wait a minute, and then you start following up on that, and it ends up looking like I'm an investigator when in fact I'm a general assignment reporter. I'll do whatever comes down the road.
And Lou, one of the things that I had mentioned that I respect both of you so much, and one of the things that I loved about your reporting, Lou, is that you were never afraid to get down in the muck to tell the story the right way, including the time when Phoenix PD first got stun guns on the force. I want to roll a little piece of tape. Take a look at the monitor, Lou.
DeGreen recently produced an informational tape about stun guns. There are 3 basic claims about what it does to attackers.
The subject experiences instant disorientation, loss of balance, and is rendered dazed and passive.
To check out claims about the stun gun's stopping power, Sergeant Darwin Berry of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office agreed to a field test. However, I don't find myself particularly stunned or dazed. After that, the element of surprise was gone. Several states outlaw these stun guns altogether, and a few restrict them only to police agencies. The Phoenix Police Department considered using these a couple of years ago, but decided against it because they weren't reliable enough. But other Valley law enforcement agencies, including the Sheriff's Office, do use them.
You know, it was after that, Lou, that Phoenix PD decided not to use the stun guns.
Well, now my wife has one. Looks like a typical day at the office.
He didn't expect you to fight back.
No, but the point is that we were trying to show that it didn't just instantly disable you.
Yeah.
That a person that wanted to fight back had a chance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, it wasn't life and death at that point, nor was I facing a felony arrest. But, it doesn't just instantly. It's not the silver bullet just by touching you.
Although, when she tried to stun me the other night, it did disable me.
It's because I have the newest modern version.
version.
Yeah, I've got the modern version.
That was the old hand taser.
Yeah.
Now they have the taser guns with the probes that come in and.
Rich, you said something really interesting to me. You said that once you moved out of doing investigations for TV and you moved into the PI world, you said the things that you learned, you said you wish you had known because you would have been a better reporter.
Yeah, there's so much nuance in the criminal justice system that I was not aware of even after all the years of covering the criminal justice system. Mm-hmm. And to understand more about how it works behind the scenes. We are involved in it behind the scenes now. We have direct contact with our clients, and to understand them as people, not just as suspects or not them as demonized on the news, unfortunately. So we get to know them better, and I think it gives us a different perspective that I wish I had known. Right. And I think I would have been a better reporter.
Which do you guys find more fulfilling, when you solve a case as a PI or when you turned a great story?
Well, what I liked about journalism was that we could take a systemic view of what's going on. So you take that 30,000-foot view, and now we're down working with a person. And it's a life and death sometimes, because we work on death penalty cases, and for that individual person. So it's different in that sense, and both of them, I think, are very important. So I think it's really important for news to do what it does and for us to do what we do.
Yeah, it's like I can tell you, I have investigated for years a major case from 1994, the armored car robbery out at.
I remember at the movie theater.
It was Dillard's out at Arrowhead Mall. Okay, at Bell Road, basically, in what's now the 101, that ended up with the arrest of 3 people. And of course, as a journalist, I covered that, but you're hitting here, you're hitting there. But in 4.5 years, I got to know that case intimately. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it happened quite the way the police thought it happened. And that's a public record now, but I don't want to get into all the details. But I mean, who did it? I don't know. But how it happened.
Where were you the night of March 4th, 1993?
Oh gosh. You guys are working, or you have done some work on a very big case that's happening right now, the Lori Vallow David case.
Right.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so we got hired as private investigators to try to find the kids. The grandparents hired us when the kids were missing. And so well before law enforcement was involved and everything. So we started trying to find all the people that were involved in that and try to find the kids. And it was the result of that information that we notified law enforcement that there was some kind of a problem. And so that's what led to all of the charges and stuff. But we were in the very early stages of that case and have been obviously following it ever since.
Well, guys, so many years of great reporting for 12 News, and we are better off for having you both as part of our reporting staff. And it has been, we talked about it last night, the best part of this week, celebrating 70 years, is seeing and reconnecting with all of these people who you admire and cared for during the years that you worked together. So
well, don't be too easily amused, Mark.
Lou, I've set the bar pretty low, as we all have to do in this business.
There I am.
No, thank you both. It's a pleasure to see you both.
Yes, of course.
Thanks, guys.